please wait to be identified with a microphone and then stand and introduce yourself by name and outlet for the three athletes. But I'd like to welcome to the stage now a senior from Wisconsin, Morgan McDonald, a senior from Stanford, Grant Fisher, and a senior from Northern Arizona, Matthew Baxter. We will welcome these athletes and open to your questions. Don.
Cleveland Track and Field News. If each of you guys could address what could be called a home course advantage for you, Morgan, but Grant and Matt, you guys have run here, and you've run here enough that it's a semi-home course for you too. You've probably run more meets here than anywhere except your home course. So address that, and Morgan, talk about what kind of home advantage you might have.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting having a course that all of us really have run it a lot, so we do know it pretty well. But in particular, for us badgers, there's a big kind of home field thing going on. We run this course every week. We know it really well. We love it. And then we'll also have all the fan supporters here. We got a ton of alumni coming back, and just a lot of friends and family coming. So I think there will be a bit of a home field advantage. I'm hoping there will be at least. And I think it'll come down to a few things, but I think just having all that support there is going to help out. And then also just our intimate knowledge of the course. I guess these guys haven't run on the 10K course, so it's a little bit of a step up, another hill in there. So I think hopefully that comes as a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, that was actually an accurate statement. I have run here more than I've run on my home course at Stanford. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting one, I think. I was just talking to my coach on the drive over. This is like a very classic Midwest day, kind of gray and breezy and looming snow. So definitely something that I grew up around and I'm excited to get back to. And I'm excited to check out the 10K course. I've run here 8K 3 times, and yeah, excited to check this one out.
It has been nice for us to have come here for Nutty Comb and Pre-Nats to really get an idea on how the course is this year. I mean, we pre-meted over it just before, and it's nice and firm underfoot. I think for us, that's all we need. We need to go over it once, just see how the 10K loop looks and feels, and for us, that's sweet. And in terms of a home course advantage, I think maybe those Wisconsin boys might need that. So.
Hey guys, Jonathan Gold here from Let'sRun.com. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the women. Snow in the forecast. Have you guys raced a cross-country race in snow before, and if so, how did it go?
Let's start on the far end, Matthew, and then come this way.
Perfect. Yeah, I personally haven't raced in snow before, so it'll be an interesting, fun experience. I think once the weather gets as cold as it is now, if there's a little bit of powder on the ground, that's really not going to make too much of a difference. The snow it maybe looks scarier than it actually is. We in Flagstaff, throughout the winter have to run in the snow all the time, so it's something we're quite used to. The snow is just going to add another fun aspect to the day, and maybe that'll change things up, make it a little bit harder for everyone, which we definitely won't complain about.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Michigan, so definitely not my first time running, training, or racing in snow. It could be new for a lot of teams on the West Coast, but we've been stressing to our guys that no matter how it is tomorrow, we're going to do the same thing that we've been doing all year. So as Matt mentioned a little bit ago, snow on the ground really doesn't change a lot. I mean, unless you're running through a foot of snow, it's not really going to alter what you're doing out there. So the nice thing is it's going to be cold, so the ground's going to be hard, and I don't think the snow will affect things too much. The only thing it could affect is a lot of guys' mentality going in, so we're trying to keep a level head about it.
Yeah, when I was 16, I kind of went through the brutal experience because I represented Australia at World Junior Cross in Poland, and I came from an Australian summer to winter, and it was just snow and muddy everywhere, and that was pretty chaotic, but it is kind of just another element. It really depends how you look at it. For me, It was super fun. I did pretty well there, and I think that's because I was just able to kind of tough it out. That's honestly how I look at cross country. It's just, it's a big grind. There's a lot of different elements that might be at play on any day, and you just got to be able to respond to them and tough them out, be the best on the day.
David Monty, Race Results Weekly. Question for Morgan. You've competed at the international level for Australia. Can you contrast that to running in the NCAA on a team where the main objective is to do as well as possible as a team versus being on a global stage when you're out there, trying to do your best on your own?
Yeah, I think anyone could tell you that there's something super special about running on a team, especially a team like Wisconsin. The group of guys that we have right now, it's an older group of guys, and there's a lot of experience there. So we've been training together for years, and we've been preparing specifically for this meet for so long. Definitely, we talked about this morning how since June we've been here in Madison training specifically for this meet, and that's definitely something that you don't really get on the international stage. You're representing your country, but it's not like a team of guys that you've been running with, and I literally live with almost all the guys on the team, so it's a very special, I think, powerful thing to be able to step out on that line and be wearing the same uniform and to be racing for each other. I think it really helps to make it that much more special.
Dave Hunter, Track and Field News. I just got into town, had a chance to see a local paper, didn't read the full article, but made reference to the fact that you maintain what I kind of call a running log, or they called it a diary. So my question is this just maybe sort of a routine detail for you on a daily basis, or does it play an additional role? Does it give you a chance to sort of get your head together and sort of check where you are mentally and emotionally as you get prepared to run a season of big races, including the biggest one tomorrow?
Yeah, so I enjoy having a diary. Mostly for personal reasons, just so that I can kind of capture the emotions that are happening on more of a day-to-day basis, and then I can look back at them in the future, because it's really interesting to see, kind of how I felt at different times. Been inspired by Matt Baxter's diary from last year. I've been studying that, and I honestly only really started getting more specific with it this year when I was talking to my teammates. I was like, this is something special that's going on in our lives right now. Let's try to document it so that when we get old, we can look back on it.
Quick follow-up, do you think Matt's been reading your diary?
I hope not, because it's in my room. So it's not out on the internet yet. But.
Question for all three. In 2016 in this meet, Morgan and Grant, you guys were real close together. I think you finished the second half apart. Matthew, you were in 11th. Can you guys each just go through and say what you remember about that 2016 NCAA Cross Championships?
Go ahead, Matthew.
There was a really interesting time, because for me it was my first national cross country. We had our coach Eric Hines at the time. He was leaving, so there was a lot of excitement and hype around our team because we had a potential of trying to win a national title. So for me, I went into that race and everything was put on the team aspect, because there was such a real emphasis that had been put on that throughout the season. So I knew straight away that cross country was about the team. That was the sole focus, and that was how every single point matters to trying to get that team title. And so I have a lot of really positive thoughts coming out of that race, because we did end up winning that first national title. It was also, it taught me a lot about this is a very hard race to be in, to try and find yourself in the front of the field. I had only done the New Zealand cross countries before that. I'd gone over and done the Australian cross countries, and I had never faced anything like the NCAA champs. It's the amount of people, the strength, the depth is something which I'm always going to remember long after I'm done with this. So I have a lot of really fond memories from that 2016 experience, and I think it taught me a lot moving forward.
Yeah, one thing I actually remember very vividly was running behind Morgan for a lot of the race. There was a point where I was kind of stuck between packs, and Morgan decided to leave the pack I was currently in, and I just thought, this might be my only shot to bridge this gap. So he really dragged me along in that race. So that was one thing I really remember, and I think all three of us are going to be running together at some point tomorrow, and you never really know what's going to play out. The thing about that race was it was my first time being close to the front of an NCAA cross-country race. The year before I was kind of in the back, like trying to work my way up and just do what I could for my team, but that was my first time really in the thick of things, and I learned a lot about physicality up front, knowing where to be. There's a lot of spots where you can lose a lot of ground on corners and on straightaways, and cross country is a different race when you're near the front than when you're just kind of trying to pick guys off throughout the race, like just trying to get the next guy. Whereas that was my first experience of being near that front pack, and knowing that my team was really depending on me to do my job. And I think I learned a lot from that race.
Yeah, for me that race capped off a pretty good season, but I remember the race specifically, I hated it. It was such a hard, tough race. I think I made a lot of mistakes in it, and I think I learned from them. That was one of those races where I remember one of my messages before the race was to everyone on the team to stay relaxed and not panic. And then I remember 1K into the race, I was so panicked. I actually, about a K&a-half in, I got tripped over, and luckily I had Maliki, my teammate, and this British guy from Iona on either side, and they literally held me up. But I was just so rattled, and I remember I wasted a ton of energy because of that. I worked my way up to the front at like halfway, and then the move was made, and I just couldn't respond because I was just still kind of catching my breath. And then I just definitely was not as relaxed as I like to be in races, and so yeah, I was just kind of grinding it out hard, and luckily I was still able to do pretty well. But I do also remember just grinding out the front of that pack, and then Grant just out kicking me at the end. That kind of sucked, but I learned a lot from that, certainly.
Grant, last year I know you went out more conservatively. It was such a fast early pace, and you were unhappy afterwards with how conservatively you kind of ran early on and then came on and finished fifth. But what have you learned from that, and how do you want to apply that tomorrow?
Yeah, I think last year was kind of a new style of race. I think over the past few years, back when Edward Cheswick was still in the NCAA, a lot of the times people kind of gauged off him because, especially my freshman year, he was a lot better than a lot of people, and if he went, sometimes people would just leave him and let him go, and that would leave the pack to kind of chill and settle for second or third or fourth or whatever the pack was at. And I think last year I wasn't prepared to go with that strong move early and run a hard 10K straight through. I was pretty used to running cross-country races where you kind of hang around for 6K and then you only have to race 4K or 2K depending on the distance. And I think this year I'm a lot more prepared to run a real 10K, and I'm excited for it. And I think last year after the race I felt like I had made a bit of a mistake just letting the guys go that I wanted to be racing at the end. And I know that I can run with guys over the last K of a race, and last year I put myself out of it before I even had that opportunity. So yeah, I'm a lot more prepared this year, ready to go, and excited for a 10K.
This one's kind of for the group, but mainly also Matt. Last year, when you and Tyler took it out, kind of shocked a lot of people. I think people weren't expecting you to grind it from the start. Obviously, Grant, stayed back. Morgan wasn't there; he was redshirting. Do you think your cards have kind of been revealed now that you've shown that, hey, you guys like to lead it, and that these two guys are going to know your race plan because you've done it so many times that they're going to know that this is what NAU is going to do, and Grant and Morgan are just going to wait until the final 200 to make a move?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's like asking a football coach for his playbook almost, saying what kind of cards we have. But the remark I would make on that is that pulling the same move 2 years in a row might not be the wisest thing in the world because everyone knows what's going to happen. So for us, we definitely do have plans going into this race, and for us, we want to maximize that team points. So we'll work with the team that we have this year and employ some form of a strategy that maximizes our points in that sense. We've trained for whatever scenario is going to happen tomorrow. If it's slow, if it's fast, our team is prepared for that, and especially we're prepared to run that last 2K. So however things pan out tomorrow, you're likely going to see NAU up in that front pack because that's where we're going to situate ourselves regardless of how the race is run. But yeah, you might see a few surprises tomorrow.
I guess, are you guys basing your strategy on what NAU is going to do to help give yourself the opportunity to win an individual title?
I wouldn't say my team is basing everything we do off of NAU. I don't think it would be wise for any team to do that. But we're prepared for hard 10K in the Midwest when it's cold and there's snow on the ground. And yeah, we're prepared to run as fast as we have ever run before, and we're also prepared to jog for 8K and sprint for 2K. As was just mentioned, you have to prepare for everything. Basing it off of how last year went is what I did last year, and I don't think that turned out too well. So I think we're prepared for what's to come, and it would be, in my opinion, a bad idea to base what you're doing off of any team here, because no team is the same 2 years in a row. My team isn't, NAU isn't, Wisconsin isn't, and you have to do what got you here, and what got us here was running how Stanford runs, and that's what we plan to do.
Yeah, similar sentiments here. We're just kind of ready to race for whatever it is, however it goes down. The one kind of thing with NCAA cross-country races is that often unexpected does happen. So, just like any other race, I don't think we're going to have a very strict race plan going in, but it's just going to more be about putting yourself in the best spots and watching your competitors and responding to moves and being smart about it.
Tyler Maple from the Coaches Association. This is all for all three of you guys. What is the biggest difference between, say, an 8K versus the 10K at championship level? What, other than the obvious answer, 2 extra K, what is the biggest difference mentally, and then what do you feel physically in that last 2K compared to like when you're racing a hard 8?
I would say the biggest difference comes around 5K, because that's the point where if, for example, the race was fast, that's the point where you realize there's another 2K. I think once you get to 8K, you can survive the last 2K, that's mostly fine, but it's earlier on in the race, once you realize you've actually got another 2K at the end, that's when things can get a little scary if you're not prepared for it. So that's where I noticed the biggest difference, that guys will think too much early on that there's another 2K to come, and so maybe I need to be a little bit more conservative around 3 or 4K, and that's where some of those decisions can actually hurt you later on.
I'd agree. It's more around the halfway point that the big difference kind of shows in people's mentalities. There are courses like in Louisville where you come through pretty much the finish line at the halfway mark. It's pretty easy to look at yourself and say, wow, I'm really tired. How am I going to make it if I have to do that again, do another lap? So I think the biggest difference comes at that halfway mark, because it's a lot easier to get to 5K and say, yeah, I can grind for another 3K, whereas it's a completely different thing to get to 5K and say, I have to do that all over again. So it's definitely a different mindset, and something that I'm sure every team here is prepared for, and yeah.
Yeah, it can be a little bit intimidating on paper, but for me personally, I don't really look at it too differently. It's just, when I race, it's more just a matter of staying relaxed for as long as possible, and it doesn't really, I'm racing my competitors, I'm not really racing the distance, so it doesn't really matter exactly how far it is. I'm just trying to do my best for, just beat the other guys around me, really.
Matt, you've been remarkably consistent in the NCAA, going back to cross 2 years ago. You've made every national championship, indoor, outdoor, never been outside the top 15. 2 questions on that. I mean, what do you attribute the consistency to? And second, when's the last time you've had a race that you would describe as a bad race?
I guess I wasn't at. Okay, no, never mind about that.
No, that one. That's the one.
The consistency comes down to how we train. It comes down to our coaching staff. It comes down to being able to keep injury free for as long as you can. That's one of the biggest things I've noticed, is especially training under Coach Smith now, that we put a lot of emphasis in trying to keep injuries at bay. And so the further you can put that stuff aside, the longer you can keep training for, I think that's where the consistency really comes from. So long as your head is in it, then you're fine for the most part. Trying to think of a race. I really bombed, I would say, at our indoor conference. Was probably one of the worst races I've had recently. I was trying to chase an indoor qualifier there, and I didn't appreciate the altitude. I didn't appreciate running in the dome, and so thankfully I took a Southern Utah athlete with me, Mike Tate, and so he died with me a little bit. But that was the last race where it was a real kick in the teeth about I need to sort out my mentality going into some of these races. But thankfully, when it counts at nationals, that's where a lot of my consistency has come from. So thankfully, hopefully I can keep that going at least.
Morgan. Oh, sorry. We've got this nice panoramic.
Excuse me, just a reminder to stand and introduce yourself by name and outlet as well.
Sean Hartnett from Track and Field News. And we've got this nice panoramic view of the course here from the Hilltop site. And with the Hilltop view, you get probably a lot more hills than you had in Louisville and Terre Haute to cope with. Both the uphills that are demanding and also downhills can sometimes be of a good tactical advantage. So hills, like them or not, for all three of you.
Go ahead, Matthew.
I like hills. I'm not scared of them in any sense. This panoramic view is definitely beautiful. Wisconsin is a very nice place to run. The hills are a different beast, and that's something which I think you do have to train for. That's where I would say there's a bit of a benefit being at altitude, because hills suck even more at altitude. So we've been putting a bit of a focus on that these hills are a really important part of the course. So I think our team is definitely prepared for whatever hills are out there for tomorrow.
Yeah, a lot of the hills on this course are the same ones that have been in past iterations of the course, and it's something to embrace, I think, and not something to be afraid of or shy away from or try to just get through, just conserve as much energy as possible on them. I think it would be likely to see a lot of people trying to make big moves on the hill, and that's all the better for my team. And yeah, the more people can attack the hills and focus their mind on the hill, the better for us, because we're just embracing it and excited for them. So yeah, I think it's important not to base your entire race plan around the hill, but something to just be cognizant of and be excited to have, because yeah, in past NCAA championships it has been kind of flat, and you don't get the sharp kind of uphills that you have here. Maybe some gradual ones, but this one definitely feels like a real cross-country course and not where you're running on a golf course. I'm not a huge fan of the golf course cross-country races, so this one feels real, and it's nice.
Yeah, I love hills. Hills are probably my favorite session, so I'm very excited that we get to run up this hill like 5 times. I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the race, and I think every lap it's gonna definitely, that's where some people are gonna start really feeling it, especially towards the end. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it plays out with the hills.
Let's go with Ryan and then Dawn, and then maybe one more final question.
Yes, Ryan Fenton with FloTrack. This is a question for Morgan. You and Alicia both talked about the kind of home field advantage and the support in Wisconsin. It's this weekend. There's I hear an alumni gathering of about 200 to 300 people. So a lot of past former greats that have come through here. 2 questions. One,
have you talked to any of them? What are the words that some of those athletes have given you? And two, is there any added pressure from those guys for Wisconsin to be on the podium?
Yeah, so throughout my time here, I've definitely been lucky enough to get to meet some of those legendary Wisconsin runners and team members, and it's always super special. I eat dinner at Tim Hacker's house about once every 2 weeks. Carol's house as well. Thanks, Carol, for making me dinner. And it's just awesome just to get that perspective. Probably the way that I guess we're looking at it, what I've the perspective I have is that in regards to the pressure, it's more so there's just a big celebration. I think it just kind of makes it that much more special. You just have all these people that you have such a shared experience with, and they just love, if we're out there doing our best, they're gonna be happy. They'll probably be happy either way. They'll probably actually be not that happy because they'll probably be hungover, but I'm just really excited to get that kind of aspect, just see the community, and I definitely think that those vibes will help kind of lift our team a bit, and yeah, definitely have been able to get some good knowledge from all these guys, but more so it's just enjoy it, just make the most out of it. We know we're fit, we know we're ready to go, so just don't really worry about it, just have fun, do your best, and everyone will be happy.
Is there one tidbit that stands out from anyone that's talked to you?
Well, I'm trying to think. It was Tim Hacker on Sunday that just said there's gonna be a lot of people out there, but it's not pressure. It's fun. Go out there and do your best, and everyone will be happy. That's definitely the main thing.
Grant, has it hit you that this is your last collegiate cross-country meet? I mean, you're 17th, 5th, and 5th in your first 3 years, and this is it, last time running collegiate cross-country. Does that hit you? Does it affect you? Does that make you want to do better, or do you not think about it?
I actually haven't thought about it a bunch. I mean, that's a common thing for a lot of people in this race. There are a lot of people whose last collegiate cross-country race is today or tomorrow, and yeah, I mean, I'm not one to get too sentimental before things happen, so I'm approaching it as every other race that I've run in. So what has made me have successful races in the past is to have a clear mind going in and execute a plan and have some fun out there. And I think if I'm caught up in too much gloomy sadness, then I don't think that'll turn out too well. Yeah, that's a common thing for a lot of people. I mean, I would imagine that a large percentage of the guys racing are in their last collegiate cross-country race. So, yeah, it's something to make the most of, something to have fun at, and give it one last shot. So I think it'll be fun.
I have one more question for each of you. With the women, we had 3 regional champions on the dais here for the press conference. Each of the 3 of you have been credited with running a smart race at the regional meet, knowing that there's 2 10Ks in a span of 9 days, and maybe this time we'll give Morgan the advantage of answering that first. But could you each of you speak briefly about how you use the regional championship as a preparation for tomorrow's championship?
Yeah, for us, I think it's like this for everyone. The regionals, your focus is just nationals. It's just about getting to nationals and trying to be the best that you can be on the day of nationals. So that might mean trying to race a bit more conservative, not getting caught up in perhaps the individual regional titles. And yeah, I think all of us, that's how we probably approach regionals. We weren't doing anything crazy. For me, it was just running with my teammates around me, which was a lot of fun, and just kind of moving up a bit in the last few K, and just a solid effort, but certainly nothing all out. When you got a 10K there and you got another 10K a week later, I think you just got to be smart about it, and that's how we approach it.
Yeah, we kind of had similar feelings about regionals. It's certainly something you can't look past because it is something you can mess up. But the big thing that we're looking forward to is tomorrow, and getting through. This is the only part of the year where you will run 2 cross-country races in back-to-back weeks, and also the only part of the year where you will run 2 10Ks in back-to-back weeks. So it's something to be considered. Definitely nothing to, I think my team was 4th, which on paper does not look too good. So we're excited for the big one tomorrow, and it's definitely something to just kind of get out there, have some fun, run with your team, and feel the flow, and get ready for the big one.
Yeah, for our team for regionals, is their last time to have that pre-race routine and maybe fix up or finalize a few things heading into the national championships. We do have to be smart because usually we're racing at 10K for the first time and we're racing it at altitude. So a little bit of that comes into it. This year maybe not so much because thanks to some Colorado boys, we ended up running faster than maybe anyone would have liked to in that race. And so that maybe took a little bit more than we would have liked for a race like that, but at the same time, it was actually kind of nice to stretch the legs out. It's one of the last big workouts, I guess, we would do leading up to nationals. So we also have BYU in our conference, so we can't take it too easy, I would say, on those guys. So regionals is always an interesting experience. You want to go into it and come out of it as relaxed as possible and have everyone intact, but at the same time, it's still a race. You want to take it seriously. So I think we've found that fine line, and we usually get through it and get through the national championships okay.
Great, thank you for your questions, and thanks to David for the great recommendation last time for a joint photo. So we'll have you 3 gentlemen stand here in front of the step and repeat for a photo.